what side of the issue Calvin would have been when it did come to the fore. And everything that he says is groundwork for the right position on that issue. The unconditionality of salvation and of election are critical. But just that the controversy itself was not yet the controversy in Calvin's day that it would become. And then number two, Calvin uses the word condition ambiguously at times. We would wish that he were unambiguous, but not always. He's not the only one of his day. When the whole controversy over condition broke in the PRC, Herman Hoeksema had some good things to say about this in articles in the Standard Bearer when appeal was made to Calvin's use of the word conditions. And he pointed out, and I point out now, that Calvin used the word conditions often in the sense of means, the means of, or the means by which. We're not pleased with that use of the word condition, but in many contexts, that is what Calvin and other Reformed theologians of that generation and following, that was the sense in which they used the word.
Thank you. Very important question and questions. We are scheduled to be finished at noon. Is that correct?
Before that.
When?
We got a few announcements and close. Yeah.
Right. No, I'm... Right. Okay, so we have a few minutes to take a few more questions. Let me... Well, let me take an easy one. I'll take this off the slow pitches. You mentioned a prayer of Calvin, and I think incorporated it into your own closing prayer. Where could we find that prayer? Probably a number of different places, but I have a little book called A Book of Reformed Prayers, out of which this morning I copied that prayer. There are other prayers, though, that I mentioned and used the other day, and you can find those in the back of the old editions of the Psalter hymnal. And you can find those in the new editions of the Netherlands Reformed printing of the Psalter. They still have those prayers, including the one I mentioned for all the needs of Christendom. And if you don't have either of those books, write me and I'll mail you a copy of them if you like. Prof. Gritters, did Calvin's School of Death provide any specialized training for its missionaries? I'm not aware of that specifically. Perhaps someone can add to what I say now. But what I've read of Calvin indicates to me that he prepared them very well spiritually. He did not send them out into those killing fields, if we want to speak of it that way, out of his school of death naive. They knew what they were going into. They did. And by his letters to prisoners and by his letters to preachers who were being persecuted, it's plain that Calvin kept the same balance, the balance of sympathy on the one hand, but stark realism on the other hand. We give our lives, and it may be that you are shedding your blood physically and literally for the gospel. In that way, maybe there's more, but at least in that way, and it seems to me that's perhaps the most important way, that he prepared them spiritually to face the harshest realities of the persecution in France. Does anyone know further?
So much was that the case that those men going into France would sign off their possessions before they left Geneva.
I'll open this up to the floor. To all of the panelists, since Geneva and Germany and the Netherlands were such strongholds of faith and have fallen so far, what lesson is this for us?
I'd like to
say something? The questioner forgot Scotland.
Sorry?
The questioner has forgotten Scotland.
Thank you. The questioner forgot Scotland. Anyone? Big question. No one wants to jump to the foreground, but please do if you have any comments. Is there a lesson in this for us?
Is there a lesson in this for us? What a warning. What a warning. There's something altogether unnatural about apostasy. The falling away so far and utterly from God and his truth, which is not just gradual, but is dramatic. The only explanation, it seems to me, is the judgment of God. And God cutting off the generations of those who depart from him and his truth. The judgment of God.
Well, I think too that's the warning of Hosea 4 verse 6, that since thou hast rejected the knowledge of God, I will also forsake your children. Germany was one of the countries mentioned by the questioner, and before my wife and I came here, we had a young German girl stay by us. She was, I think I have this right, the only Reformed person that she knew of in the University of Duisburg. And one of her professors asked her, "Why are you so happy?" And she said, "I believe in God." When the humanist professor could kind of work with that. "Oh, that's very nice. What about your God?" Then she began to explain what the Bible said about God and explain the truth of sovereign grace. And he was appalled. And he said to her, "I didn't know there was anybody like you left in Germany." Beliefs in his mind like something out of the Dark Ages. This is the frightening progress of apostasy, that as the churches and the world become less and less familiar with the truth and more corrupt and rotten in their development, anything which smacks of Christianity becomes strange, weird, alien, and it's a frightening form of humanism that grips countries where the gospel of Christ is driven out, and this is precisely